This video is so unscripted. Sometimes products are bad. Sometimes products are incredibly bad. Sometimes products are so unimaginably awful that it gives anyone who watches it cancer just by looking at it. And sometimes it's Sword Art Online Alicization. Yeah, guys, this show is really bad. I'll start off by talking about the stuff that I liked about the show. Now I'll talk about the stuff that I tolerated about the show. The visuals are fine. Like, obviously there was a lot of production value put in here, so it looks good. The animation is weirdly choppy, but the still frames obviously look great, and there was clearly lots of time put into this. It's obviously not going to keep up that kind of production value because this is the first episode, and first episodes always have the most effort put into them. Regardless though, this is my talking about video of episode 1 only, so I'll just try to talk about what happens in episode 1. Spoiler alert, and nothing happens in episode 1. Seriously, I am legitimately concerned for anyone who found anything in this episode to be entertaining in the slightest. We start off on July 18th, year 372 in the time of the realm of humanity. We are greeted by Child Kirito for some reason, and Child Kirito reskin. Seriously, I cannot stress enough how much same-face syndrome applies here. Like in the original Sword Art Online, same-face syndrome was really bad, but here they literally just copy and paste the faces. You cannot convince me otherwise. So then Kirito reskin, and Girl Kirito, also who has the exact same face but with different colors, go off to try to find ice. Riveting stuff. The show spends 5 minutes of these characters just sitting around talking about how they want ice so that they can keep their food cold. Not only is this an unfathomably boring plot point, but it's part of and immediately followed by a massive exposition dump about some knight who fought some dragon. I stopped listening like 30 seconds in. Eventually though, they do find ice inside of a cave, and it's treated like this insanely big deal when it's incredibly boring and meaningless for the people watching. This is a fundamental problem with the show, and especially this episode. The thing is, we as audience members just do not care. We have been introduced to these characters literally 10 minutes ago, and they have shown zero signs of personality. And that's me being generous, because most people have already seen the past 2 seasons, and they know how lifeless Kirito is. So basically, we're watching a group of 3 children, 2 of which we couldn't care less about, and the other of which we hate, try to find ice so that they can keep their sandwiches cold. And it takes them more than 12 minutes to do this. Finally, they come across something actually interesting, a giant dragon skeleton, and determine that it was killed by a human. This also brings up that these characters are way too smart to be children. Seriously, the way they talk and behave, other than that weird wrestling scene at the beginning of the show, is way too mature for any child. Their intelligence, however, is on the level of a child, as they get lost and can't remember which way they came into the cave. They wander around for a bit and then finally find an exit where they see 2 dudes on dragons fighting each other. This is probably where the episode actually started for most people, and to take a step back from the admittedly good visuals, ask yourself, what's at stake here? Who are these people fighting? Why should we care who wins and loses? These are the questions that I found myself asking throughout the entirety of the episode. Nothing about what was happening in front of me I cared about at all. You can't just have 2 people fighting each other for no reason and expect people to be entertained watching it if they're over the age of 12. I recently wrote an analysis on an actually good fight scene from My Hero Academia and how to write good fight scenes in general, and this show clearly has no grasp of how to do so. But you know what, whatever. The Black Knight guy gets shot in the chest and Girl Kirito makes the stupidest move possible and tries to reach out to help him. It's at this point in the episode that I started laughing uncontrollably, because I honestly could not believe that somebody thought that this was a good idea. What if this guy is the bad guy? What if you're gonna get killed by running into the battlefield and probably getting shot yourself? What if he's gonna kill you the second that you get close to him? But no time to think about that, we need to pay attention to Girl Kirito falling over. I'm gonna ignore the fact that how do you even fall over like this? You are absolutely retarded. And focus on the question, why is this a big deal? Seriously, like, we find out a little bit later that you're apparently not allowed to touch or, like, go into the underworld, But we don't find this out until after she falls, and it feels like the show just decides to go really dramatic for like 5 seconds of this little girl just falling over, and it's honestly kind of hilarious. It's even more funny because they use this awful looking CGI panning shot to make it look more dramatic. But whatever, the floating head guy from Power Rangers comes out and basically says that the girl's gonna be killed. Again, why do I care? We then smash cut to when they're back into their village and suddenly everything's fine, but then we cut to a dream that Kirito Riskin is having. And this is the only part of the episode that I think looks good because I just like how they drew and animated the hand here. But I suppose it's fitting that the only part of this episode that actually looks good is in a dream. Anyway, suddenly it's the next day and girl Kirito is being taken away by that white knight dude. And oh no, he uses magic to push over Kirito while he tries to save the girl that no one cares about. This is a perfect example of how the show seems to like to treat the most insignificant instances as if they're massive world-changing events. Seriously, the cinematography, music, lighting, and all that stuff just like amps up to 11, even though he's literally just being pushed over by some force. More magic-y stuff happens with Kirito Riskin's eye that we get no explanation for, naturally. Then autistic screech, followed by waking up and crying. What do we do after this clearly scarring moment for our main character? Try to explain it? Try to say why it's significant to the story? Maybe give any kind of indication that these characters are at all worth caring for? Ha! No. We cut to Gun Gale Online. We then spend 3 minutes on a fight that we could not care less about once again. If you thought that the first fight with those 2 knight guys on the dragons was boring, then you have no idea what is coming to you. Also, they changed the lightsaber sound effects so that they weren't lightsabers anymore so that they wouldn't get copyrighted, and now it just sounds like a farting sound effect. Seriously, I died of laughter when I first heard it, and I did not know what to make of it. But that's the only entertaining part of this fight. This scene exists solely to reintroduce us to the main cast and to give us a very, very unsubtle hint that Death Gun is still around. Oh god, I thought we were past this. Speaking of stuff that I thought we had left behind, we immediately follow this scene by a massive exposition dump for 12 minutes. You may remember that in the past seasons of this show, they love doing exposition dumps in cafes. Well, get this, we get 2 cafes for this exposition dump, one in-game and one in real life, both of which are equally boring. Guess that message about video games being just as important as real life is kind of accurate. The whole dump boils down to everyone still wants to give Kirito a blowjob, and he's working with this company that's using him as a test subject for this season's version of virtual reality. I literally just saved you a fourth of the episode in one sentence. Also, that one rapey guy who tried to rape Shinon and killed all those people as Death Gun was apparently not given the death sentence, and Shinon is allowed to regularly visit him. And the company that Kirito is working for now is allowed to legally erase his memories. Don't think about how little sense it makes. Also, they crowbar in this idea that the new virtual reality system is an extension of Heathcliff's philosophy, and this analogy just completely falls apart and makes zero sense. But hey, remember that super subtle hint that they gave like halfway through the episode that Death Gun was still around? Well, surprise, surprise, Death Gun's still around. The other Death Gun, the one that was a member of the Laughing Coffin. And he has a vaccine, which we all know gives people autism and then kills them. Unfortunately, Kirito already has autism, so it just kills him. Episode over. This episode of anime was 47 minutes and 40 seconds of wasting my time. At no point in this episode did I feel any sort of connection to whatever was happening to the characters, care about them in the slightest, or was actively engaged in what was happening on screen. If I wanted to make a longer video tearing this episode a new asshole by explaining how it does nothing to fix the problems established in the previous 2 seasons and how it undermines the audience's intelligence constantly, I'd be here for hours. But you know, I think I've lost enough brain cells as it is, so I'm just gonna stop here. Do yourself a favor and stay far away from this show, and do me a favor by liking, commenting, and subscribing, yada yada yada. The Dude Bro handshake in the credits was cool.